Nicholas Lindsay. This is Nicholas Lindsay, a 17-year-old from St. Petersburg, Florida, making his appearance at the Pinellas Pasco Circuit Court after committing a crime that got him found guilty of first-degree murder, resulting in a sentence of life imprisonment.
My last text with him was me saying, "Be safe, Dad. I love you." Which he immediately replied, "I will, sweetheart. I love you too." That was 1 hour before Lindsay went to shooting him.
The voice you just heard is that of Amanda Crawford, the daughter of St. Petersburg police officer David Crawford, who lost his life after a deadly encounter with Nicholas Lindsay. On February 21st, 2011, Officer David Crawford responded to a 911 call about a possible burglary near Tropicana Field. The caller claimed he saw a man holding a brick in his backyard, who later jumped the fence. Officer Crawford quickly arrived at the scene and exited his vehicle when he spotted the mystery burglar, who was later identified as Nicholas Lindsay. Perhaps seeing that the suspect was only a teenager, Crawford's greatest undoing was to believe that he had the situation under control. According to the police, Nicholas Lindsay opened fire on David Crawford as the officer reached for a notepad.
Every single shot he fired was exactly where he aimed it, at the body of Officer Crawford.
Officer Crawford managed to fire 6 rounds from his Glock, but none of the bullets hit Lindsay as he fled from the scene. Another officer found the wounded 25-year veteran on the ground and immediately called for medical support. David Crawford was pronounced dead at Bayfront Medical Center. Crawford's death quickly made the news, leading to a massive manhunt for the killer, drawing in more than 200 police officers from different agencies across Tampa Bay. The manhunt ended on the night of February 22, 2011, when police received several tips from the community that led to a raid on an apartment where Nicholas Lindsay lived with his mother, Deneen Sweat, and brothers. Sweat later told ABC affiliate WFTS that she knew something was wrong when the police came to her apartment, but she let them in. After finding out the reason why the police wanted her son, Sweat wasn't caught in two minds about her next action, and she immediately told her son he needed to cooperate with the police. Still speaking to WFTS, Sweat said,
"I told my son, man up and tell what happened. And he did that."
Sweat was with her son when he confessed to killing Officer David Crawford. According to Police Chief Chuck Harmon, Lindsay didn't hold back any details as he tearfully confessed to the murder after much pleading from his parents.
Thought it was on safety, but it wasn't. When I pulled it out, I wanted my finger on the trigger.
Harmon went on to add, when he did make the admission on tape for us at the end of the day, it was quite apparent that he was remorseful in his actions. In his confession, Lindsay claimed he shot at Crawford's stomach with a gun he had bought for $140 off the streets a week before the incident. The then 16-year-old also told the police he couldn't recollect how many times he fired at Crawford. However, the police later revealed that Lindsay had fired at least 4 rounds at the unsuspecting police officer. The killer teen fled from the scene and threw his gun into a creek. The murder case attracted much media attention because Crawford was the 3rd police officer to die in St. Petersburg in less than a month. Unsurprisingly, the Pinellas County Courthouse was packed with reporters the next day as Nicholas Lindsay was formally charged with the murder of David Crawford. Although Lindsay had previously been charged in the juvenile system's truancy court, a murder trial was unfamiliar territory for the teenager. Inside the courtroom, Lindsay shockingly showed little emotion. Still, his father, Nicholas Lindsay Sr., broke into tears as he apologized to the family and friends of the slain officer. The visibly distraught father said,
On behalf of me, my son, and our entire family, we send our deepest of sorrow sympathy to the family and his colleague that he worked with. It's not only son, no son that it happened.
Speaking inside the courtroom, Officer Crawford's partner Stu Crisco explained he has found it difficult to forgive Nicholas Lindsay, saying,
"According to my faith, I am supposed to forgive you. I do not know that I will ever be able to do that."
Stu Crisco added,
"And I hope that you live to be a very old man, locked up, and every single day that you were locked away, that you can think of the choices that you made that night and all the things that you missed."
After a week-long trial in March 2012, 17-year-old Nicholas Lindsay was convicted of David Crawford's murder and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Although Lindsay was tried as an adult, his age was still pivotal in helping him to avoid the death penalty. 2 years later, Lindsay's life sentence was upheld in court following an appeal, and the convicted killer shocked everyone when he grinned on hearing the judge's ruling. Many were taken aback by the lack of remorse shown by the teenager, especially David Crawford's daughter, Amanda. While speaking to reporters after the ruling, Amanda called out Lindsay's awkward reaction in the courtroom.
Justice was served, and I'm glad it's over. And it just kind of proves to me that He's an animal as he sat there smiling.
Danta Wright.
Armed robbery. Count 3, the conspiracy to commit armed robbery. Count 6, the felony firearm. And an added count 7 of murder in the second degree under PAC code 750.317. That is a felony punishable by life or any term of years.
When it comes to shocking reactions to life sentences from teenage killers, very few come close to the chilling smiles and unbothered disposition of 18-year-old Danta Wright, who was appearing at the Washtenaw County Trial Court, Ann Arbor, Michigan, for the gruesome murder of 18-year-old high schooler Jordan Klee. Jordan Klee was a senior at Pioneer High School and also one of the best footballers in his school. He dreamt of going to college at Michigan University and joining their football team. Unfortunately, that dream never materialized, as Klee didn't even make it to his high school graduation. On October 4, 2016, Klee was found dead by a maintenance worker at an apartment complex at Pine Lake Village, Ann Arbor. He had a single gunshot wound to his head, and his body was lying on a path outside the condominium complex.
Really sad, really sad. Everyone's crying and stuff. Big loss for the teachers.
Police officers were immediately called to the scene, and a thorough investigation was launched after the death was ruled as a homicide. Following some tips, 3 suspects were arrested in connection with the killing of Jordan Klee: Danta Wright, Delrano Gracie, and Jermarius Ellison. They were all teenagers at the time of the crime and allegedly belonged to a street gang. Several months after Jordan Klee's death, Danta Wright left everyone stunned when he casually confessed to killing Klee with the help of his friends during a June 2017 hearing. Wright explained that the trio had attempted to rob Klee when things went south, and he shot him in the back of his head.
And as a result of that armed robbery, what did you do with that gun and Mr. Jordan Klee?
Shot him
And where did you shoot him?
on the top of his head.
And did you kill him with that shot?
Yes.
A month later, Danta Wright met with the victim's family members at a Washtenaw County courthouse in Michigan. However, anyone who came to the courthouse expecting a peaceful proceeding was left disappointed after the court was briefly thrown into confusion after the judge threatened to reject the sentencing agreement due to Danta Wright's appalling behavior in the courtroom. As a family member read an impact statement on behalf of the victim's grieving mother, Danta Wright could be seen smiling and almost laughing at the pain of his victim's family. Not paying any attention to Wright's embarrassing display of petulance, the family member left most of the crowd seated in the court in tears with the closing paragraph of Karen Klee's impact statement.
I've lost laughter and love. I no longer have the hope of having grandchildren. I've lost the enjoyment of holidays and birthdays and of everyday life.
Danta Wright further angered the already irritated judge when he addressed the court. Instead of apologizing to his victim's family, the killer teenager chose to send a shout-out to his own family. He casually said,
I just want to tell y'all I'll be home soon. R.I.P. Keon. I love my family.
At this point, the 22nd Circuit Court Judge David Swartz had just about had enough of Wright's attitude, and he asked the prosecutors if the sentencing agreement was too lenient. He said,
But watching you sit there, smile, laugh, and shake your head like this was no big deal, I'm very tempted to just say, I'm not going to accept this sentence agreement. We'll go to trial, and if you're convicted of felony murder, you'll go to prison for the rest of your life. That means you'll die there.
The court then proceeded on a short recess to allow the prosecution to deliberate on whether to take the case to trial, as the judge had suggested. Ultimately, Jordan Klee's family asked that the case not go to trial, as that would only bring them more trauma. When the sentencing resumed, Wright's lawyer apologized to the court on behalf of his client and blamed the inappropriate behavior on some emotional issues suffered by Wright. Judge David Swartz subsequently imposed a 50 years prison sentence on Danta Wright for the murder of Jordan Klee. With how grim prison experience is, hopefully Danta Wright has kept a smile on his face throughout. Jennifer Mee. In another life, Jennifer Mee could have been a reality star or social media influencer. Jennifer certainly could draw public attention and demonstrated this when she first burst into the limelight in 2007. The then 15-year-old gained national fame when she developed an unusual case of uncontrollable hiccups.
I get really bad chest pain, abdominal pains, throat pains, back pains. It's unbelievable.
Jennifer Mee's search for a cure to the hiccups earned her the nickname Hiccup Girl, and during that time she appeared on several television shows nationwide in a bid to find a lasting solution to her hiccups. After suffering the mysterious symptoms for over a month, the hiccups finally stopped when she was treated by Dr. Bob Lind. Although the media attention reduced drastically after she was treated, Mee continued to make the headlines, albeit for the wrong reasons. In June 2007, when she ran away from home, it was reported in the newspaper. Also in 2010, a missing person report for Mee was issued by the St. Petersburg police. From here, things just continued to go downhill for Jennifer Mee. Mee's problems began when she started dating a man named Lamont Newton in 2010. She was just 18 at the time, and together with a third accomplice, Laren Rayford, they formed an armed robbery gang that targeted unsuspecting victims from social networking sites. In October 2010, Jennifer met a 22-year-old man, Shannon Griffin, online and lured him to a vacant home days later. Once the duo arrived at the home, Mee led Griffin to the back, where Newton and Rayford had already laid an ambush. Griffin was shot multiple times with a .38 caliber handgun. Mee and her friends then made off with less than $1.50 of his money, leaving him to die from the bullet wounds. All three suspects were arrested just a few hours after Griffin's body was discovered. Their arrest was relatively easy, given that the trio had been living together until the police captured them. All three friends were subsequently charged with first-degree murder, although the police were able to establish that Jennifer Mee had not pulled the trigger. In November 2010, Jennifer Mee appeared at a Pinellas County court hearing to convince a judge to release her on bail. Although she didn't speak during the hearing, the microphone amplified her loud sobs and hiccuping as she stood next to attorney John Trevino, who implored the judge to release her on bail because she posed no flight risks. Griffin's cousin Doug Bolden also spoke at the hearing, and he recalled how excited Griffin was about his date with Mee. Doug said,
"He was going to go on a date. He just thought he was going on a date. Just a young college-age kid grinning ear to ear, about to go on a date, just happy as could be."
Following Doug Bolden's passionate plea, Jennifer Mee was denied bail by the judge and remanded in prison. Nearly 3 years after Griffin's death, Pinellas County Judge Nancy Motley found Jennifer Mee guilty of first-degree murder.
The jury having found you guilty of murder in the first degree, Miss Mee, I will adjudicate you guilty and sentence you to life in prison without parole.
On hearing the verdict, Jennifer Mee began to weep uncontrollably and at the same time held her head with her hands. The look on her face was that of someone suddenly hit with the reality that her life was ruined. Jennifer Mee sobbed some more as she was led out of the courtroom to resume her jail sentence. Mackenzie Shirilla. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and in this case, Mackenzie Shirilla became hell on earth for her victims, boyfriend Dominic Russo and his pal Davian Flanagan, as she executed a death sentence on them using her Toyota Camry car. For this cowardly act, Mackenzie Shirilla rightly earned the nickname Hell on Wheels. Shirilla and Dominic Russo were an item for several months, and most of their social media followers believed all was well with the young lovers. They regularly shared loved-up photos and videos on their social media profiles, which sold the narrative to many of their social media friends that the duo was the real deal. However, behind the scenes, this was far from the truth. The love they once shared seemingly fizzled out, and the duo constantly fought and argued. Their relationship became so toxic that threats became common, and at this point, Russo decided it was time to quit. This was the obvious solution for any right-thinking person, but Shirilla saw Russo as hers and decided that death was the only way out of the relationship. So around 5:30 a.m. on July 31st, 2022, the then 17-year-old drove her Toyota Camry at over 100 miles per hour and rammed into a large brick building at the intersection of Progress and Alameda Drives in Strongsville. There were two other occupants in the car at the time of the crash: Mackenzie Shirilla's boyfriend, Dominic Russo, who was 18 then, and his 17-year-old pal Davian Flanagan. The two were pronounced dead at the crash scene, while Shirilla miraculously survived, but was hospitalized. Although Shirilla has continued to maintain her innocence and claims she has no recollection of what led to the crash, her actions after the collision were somewhat unnerving for a person who is meant to be mourning the loss of her soulmate. Following the crash, Shirilla searched the internet for Los Angeles modeling jobs while still in her hospital bed. After she was discharged from the hospital, Shirilla attended a music concert in her wheelchair and later recorded a TikTok video for Halloween, where she was seen dancing with friends in what looked like a corpse costume. These were some of the points made by the prosecution during the double murder trial. Prosecutors also explored the problematic relationship Sherilla shared with Russo and used it to provide more evidence against her. The prosecution detailed how Sherilla had become threatening towards her boyfriend in the weeks leading to the crash. According to witness, 2 weeks before the crash, she had threatened to crash her car while driving with Russo because they had an argument.
He observed at that time the defendant striking Dominic Russo with both hands, and that he overheard her make a statement, an admissible statement, and she said, "Dominic, I'm going to crash this car." We find that it is especially and important to her state of mind just 2 weeks later when she used a car to kill Dominic Russo.
Unsurprisingly, the video evidence was pivotal in helping Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Judge Nancy Margaret Russo reach a verdict during the August 14, 2023 sentencing of Mackenzie Sherilla. While specifically highlighting the crash video, the judge said,
"This is the type of evidence you can never unsee. You can never forget the visual or audio of this exhibit. It's chilling and tragic. As you review that exhibit, you know that you are watching oncoming deaths of two people, and there's nothing that will stop it."
As the judge read out her pre-sentencing speech, Mackenzie Sherilla sobbed uncontrollably as it slowly dawned on her where the verdict was headed. Before delivering the verdict, the judge pointed out how Sherilla had visited the crash route, an obscure route that is usually not taken by her, a few days before the crash, and echoed the stand of the prosecutors that her actions were premeditated. She acted knowing that her actions could bring harm not only to the occupants in the vehicle, but also to pedestrians. Judge Russo, who isn't related to Dominic Russo, wrapped up by emphasizing that there was no doubt that Sherilla intended to kill her boyfriend. In her words,
"She had a mission, and she executed it with precision. The mission was death."
She added,
"Her actions were controlled, methodical, deliberate, intentional, and purposeful. This was not reckless driving. This was murder."
Judge Nancy Margaret Russo found Mackenzie Sherilla guilty of killing both Dominic Russo and Davian Flanagan. She subsequently sentenced her to 2 concurrent 15 years to life sentences. As Sherilla was handcuffed by officers, she began to cry uncontrollably. Mackenzie Sherilla was then escorted out of the court to start her prison sentence. Aiden Fucci. This is 14-year-old Aiden Fucci making his appearance at St. Johns County Courtroom, Florida. Do not be deceived by his harmless look as the teenager deliberately threw the whole of St. Johns County community into mourning, faced when he fatally stabbed his schoolmate Tristan Bailey 114 times. Although Fucci and Bailey attended Patriot Oaks Academy in St. Johns County, Florida, Bailey was more involved in school activities and was part of the school's cheerleading squad. She was one of 5 children of Stacy and Forrest Bailey and lived with her family in Durbin Crossing in northwest St. Johns County, which was very close to where Aiden Fucci lived. On the night of her death, Fucci convinced the 13-year-old cheerleader to leave home and meet him at a friend's place. That same day, video footage from a residence captures 2 people believed to be Fucci and Bailey walking east on Saddlestone Drive, which is very close to where her body was discovered toward the end of a retention pond. At some point, Fucci was able to lure Bailey to a secluded area where he launched the vicious attack on her, stabbing her 114 times, with an autopsy later revealed that at least 49 of those were defensive wounds. On May 9th, 2021, Bailey was reported missing by her family after she vanished from their home. While a search was going on for the missing cheerleader, Aiden Fucci took to Snapchat to share a post, holding up a peace sign at the back of a police patrol vehicle alongside his best friend. The image was accompanied by a message that read, "Hey guys, has anybody sick seen Tristan lately?" However, Fucci's inquest didn't get the sort of response he was hoping for. As one particular commenter wrote, "You were with her, Aiden. Know what happened to her." Later that Sunday, Tristan's body was found in a retention pond close to her home. A murder investigation was immediately launched that led police straight to Aiden Fucci, and he was arrested on May 10th, 2021, as the prime suspect. Fucci initially claimed he had nothing to do with the murder, but his story continued to change throughout his interrogation. Eventually, Fucci claimed he and Tristy got into an argument, and he pushed her to the ground, where she accidentally hit her head. Fucci made these false claims, unaware of the amount of evidence that investigators already had on him. From speaking to his friends and girlfriend, investigators had established that Fucci often fantasized about killing people, and he precisely detailed murder plans involving dragging a random person into the woods and stabbing them. Aiden Fucci's girlfriend also told investigators that he always carried a knife and often talked about killing people, even her. She said he enjoyed coming up from behind her and pretending to slit her throat. She admitted that even though it was a bit unsettling, they never took any of his utterances seriously. A ton of physical evidence was also recovered that pointed to Aiden Fucci as Bailey's killer. A buck knife with a missing tip was found near her body, matching fragments lodged in Bailey's scalp. The knife was later identified as Fucci's. There is also the security video that showed Fucci and Bailey close to the murder area, and some DNA evidence. Also, a search of Aiden Fucci's home provided a mountain of evidence that was more than enough to prove his guilt. Detectives also found wet, blood-stained shoes and clothing in his room, blood and dirt on the drain by the bathroom sink, and blood-stained denim jeans in a laundry basket. On February 6, 2023, Fucci pleaded guilty to the first-degree murder of Tristan Bailey. Even though he was 16 at the time, he was tried as an adult due to the gruesome nature of his crime and the premeditation that went into it.
I just want to say I plead out guilty, and that I'm sorry for the Bailey family and my family.
During his sentencing at the St. Johns County courtroom on March 24, 2023, Judge R. Lee Smith emphasized the impact the murder had on the community while reading his verdict report. He said,
I would submit that this case is probably the most difficult and shocking case that this county and St. Johns County has dealt with. In the 20 years that I have been, or 16 years that I have been practicing law.
Even though Fucci paid close attention to Smith's verdict report, he remained stoic and showed no emotion, preferring to shake his head a few times.
Mr. Fucci, having entered a plea of guilty to the crime of first-degree murder, I adjudicate you guilty of the premeditated first-degree murder of Tristan Bailey. I sentence you to life in prison.
Even when the judge found him guilty of the premeditated first-degree murder of Tristan Bailey, there was no visible reaction or emotion from him, just a cold, lifeless look that would give the faint-hearted nightmares. The judge imposed a life sentence on him to ensure he wouldn't be causing any more problems in St. Johns County or anywhere else. However, his age at the time of the crime means he would be eligible for parole after serving 25 years out of his sentence. Philip Chisholm. Although Philip Chisholm might look like any other teenager, the 9th grader at Danvers High School, Massachusetts was only 14 when he appeared at Salem Superior Court to first-degree murder, armed robbery, and rape charges after brutalizing his 24-year-old maths teacher, Colleen Ritzer, inside the school toilet. Friends, family, and colleagues described Ritzer as a shining light with a bubbling personality who loved to put a smile on everyone's face. This kind nature eventually put her in harm's way when she innocently asked Chisholm to stay after school so she could help him with some math problems. Unknown to Ritzer, Chisholm had already developed a sinister plan to end her life days before. But why would a 14-year-old student want his teacher dead? Philip Chisholm never provided any explanations for his actions, but a student who had witnessed a minor fallout between Ritzer and Chisholm provided some investigators with some insight. The student witness recalled seeing Chisholm get visibly upset when Ritzer innocently referred to his recent move from Tennessee during a discussion with him. The teenager relocated to Massachusetts from Tennessee with his mom, who was going through a bitter divorce with his dad. Even though Ritzer quickly changed the topic, Chisholm still appeared upset, and the student witness later observed him talking to himself. Several hours after that fallout, Philip Chisholm had done the unthinkable, and footage captured by the school's newly installed security camera system showed that it was premeditated. On the morning of October 22, 2013, the security cameras showed Chisholm arriving at school with several bags, which were put in his locker. Inside the bags were a mask, box cutter, and change of clothing, tools he intended to use to carry out his evil plot. Around 2:45 p.m., Ritzer was recorded exiting the classroom and heading for the second-floor women's bathroom. A few moments later, Chisholm peeps into the hallway in the direction of Ritzer before ducking back into the classroom. He then re-emerges with his hood over his head, trails Ritzer, and pulls on gloves before entering the same bathroom. Once inside the bathroom, Philip Chisholm robs Colleen Ritzer of her iPhone, credit cards, and underwear before raping and stabbing her 16 times in the neck with the box cutter. Between 3:07 p.m. and 3:16 p.m., Chisholm was captured on the security camera wearing several different outfits and going around the parking lot and classrooms before finally returning to the bathroom. He then put Ritzer's body inside a recycle bin and hauled it outside the school through an elevator. He dragged the bin to a wooded area outside the school, where he again raped Ritzer's lifeless body, but this time with a tree branch. After this act of savagery, Chisholm went on about his day like nothing had happened, and even left school early enough to purchase movie tickets with Ritzer's credit card. While all of this was happening, a search had already begun for Chisholm after he was pinned as the main culprit following Ritzer's mysterious disappearance and the discovery of blood in the bathroom, the bloody recycle bin, and her blood-stained clothing near the cross-country path in the woods behind the school. Curiously, Philip Chisholm was the only person affiliated with the school who was also missing. Philip Chisholm was arrested around 12:30 a.m. the next day while walking along a darkened highway outside Danvers. When the police searched Chisholm, they found several items belonging to Ritzer in his possession, including her underwear, credit cards, and purse, as the box cutter covered with dried blood. After interrogation, police got information from Chisholm that led them to discover Colleen Ritzer's half-naked body around 3 a.m., and it was a gruesome sight. A tree branch was left hanging from her vagina, and detectives also found a handwritten note by Chisholm that read, "I hate you all." The death of Colleen Ritzer, a much-loved member of the faculty of Danvers High School, sent shockwaves through the whole community, and through the morning, there were still loud protests for justice to be meted out to her killer, despite his age. Consequently, Philip Chisholm was tried as an adult, even though he was only 14 when he committed the heinous crimes. During his sentencing on February 6, 2016, friends, family, colleagues, and students of the 24-year-old math teacher stormed the courtroom to demand that Philip Chisholm be sent to prison for the rest of his life. In the victim impact statements, Colleen Ritzer's loved ones detailed their pain and explained how difficult life has been for them since Ritzer was brutally snatched from them. One of the people who spoke at the sentencing was Colleen Ritzer's brother, and he didn't mince any words when describing the kind of verdict he thought Philip Chisholm deserved.
Put this animal behind bars to the maximum possible sentence. Do not give this coward the opportunity to shatter another family's lives.
These sentiments were re-echoed by Colleen Ritzer's mother, who described her daughter's killer as pure evil that can never be rehabilitated. Chisholm remained expressionless as he watched the victim's family and friends tearfully describe the pain the loss had brought upon them. There was nothing in his demeanor that suggested he felt any remorse for his actions, much less regret. After hearing all the various victim impact statements, the judge sentenced Philip Chisholm to at least 40 years in prison for the rape and murder of Colleen Ritzer. On hearing the verdict, his mother, who was in the courtroom, broke down in tears. However, Chisholm showed no emotion as he was handcuffed out of the courtroom. Shondell Jackson. Our final story is perhaps the most shocking reaction to a life sentence that you have ever seen. Instead of remorse, Shondell Jackson showed contempt and arrogance right from the moment he murdered 21-year-old University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee film student Nathan Potter to his sentencing at the Milwaukee County Circuit Court. In July 2009, Jackson and an accomplice, Derek J. Thomas, accosted Potter as he walked to his River West apartment in the 2500 block of N. Dousman Street. Their intention was to rob him, but when they found out he had no money, Shondell Jackson pulled out a gun and shot Nathan Potter in the chest. It was a senseless killing that didn't have to happen, but Jackson's thirst for blood and violence was apparently on overdrive, as he was involved in another non-fatal shooting on that same day. The then 19-year-old was arrested shortly after killing the film student, but no one was prepared for the sort of drama that unfolded thereafter. In February 2010, a jury found Jackson guilty of being a party to a crime of first-degree intentional homicide and attempted robbery of Nathan Potter. However, Jackson shocked everyone in the courtroom with his reaction to the verdict, as he turned to his victim's family and rained obscenities at them. A few minutes after this strange outburst, Jackson is being led out of the courtroom by deputies, and just as he reaches the door, he turns towards the Potters and laughs. A few months later, during Shondell Jackson's sentencing, Assistant District Attorney Mark Williams played footage of that disgraceful moment for Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Rebecca Dallett in a bid to demonstrate Jackson's unremorsefulness and get her to rule out any possibility of parole. After the tape was played, Nathan Potter's father, John Potter, got a chance to address the court, and in between heavy sobs, he urged the judge to put Jackson away for good. He said,
"Judge, there's nothing that can be said to bring back our Nathan. But your sentence can ensure that Shondell does not have the opportunity as a free man to inflict pain like this again. Is there such thing as pure evil? We think so."
In the end, the tactic employed by the prosecution proved to be successful as Judge Dallett sentenced Shondell Jackson to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The verdict provoked a violent outburst from Jackson in which he aimed a string of obscenities at the judge as well as the victim's family. Eventually, he had to be wrestled down, pepper sprayed, and physically restrained by 3 deputies. The scenes threw the court into momentary pandemonium, and members of Jackson's family seized the opportunity to taunt the Potters. While screaming support for Jackson as he was led out of the courtroom by deputies, one woman could be heard saying to the Potter family, Most of the people who attended the sentencing were left appalled by the behavior of Jackson's family, especially the Potters. Speaking to reporters after the sentencing, the victim's father, John Potter, was visibly confused by the hate directed at his family while repeatedly stating that they had done nothing to warrant such treatment. He ended by stating that he hoped that Jackson would come to terms with his actions at some point and learn to value human life while spending the rest of his life behind bars. For more content like this, click on the videos showing on your screen now.